sunglasses.
You look like a baller.
Bam, we're live. What do you mean look like one?
You are a baller.
Thank you. Will,
What's up?
your hair is flat today?
I guess so, yeah, a little flat.
Is that because it's getting long?
No, actually, I've been too lazy to buy a hairbrush. I've just been using a comb, so I think it may have changed the
Wait a
fullness of
second.
it.
You use a comb?
Well,
Let's
I
dive
did
into
for
this,
a while.
please.
Just because I didn't have a hairbrush.
I think when I was in college, I was the last, like, I think when I like basically just stopped showering and just went to the beach every day, stopped wearing shoes. I don't think I've brushed my hair, combed my hair ever since I've been in my 20s. How old are you?
22.
Oh, maybe I hadn't quite, probably like 25 last time I brushed my hair. So I switched to my fingers and never went back. You know what I mean? Like if I'm gonna
I've always
brush my
had the
hair, I
issue.
just push it over.
Yeah, I do that too at the end, but I've always had the issue of like when I towel dry my hair, it gets super puffy. And so then I'm like, well, it's either going to be a hairball or I got to do something.
Oh, yeah.
Any advice?
I used to carry a brush in my back pocket.
I didn't do that.
What are you laughing at, Caleb?
I can just imagine you wearing jeans, I guess, like sagged just above your ass crack.
No, dickhead. I'm 49. That wasn't around yet.
Oh, okay.
I would wear corduroys or something, and I'd have a brush in my pocket, and I had really poofy like 80s hair. Like
My next guess was corduroys.
Yes,
corduroys. My dad had the poofy hair, and he told me he carried one of those picks because he had like an afro, so he carried a pick in his back pocket.
How old's your dad?
54.
Damn.
It's crazy. It's crazy that you could be my son. Crazy. Hey, at the I heard at the fights last night they were chanting "Let's go Brandon" for Brandon Moreno.
They were.
That's dope.
It was pretty great. And Joe Rogan pointed out, he says they're appropriately chanting "Let's go Brandon" this time.
Hey, they could never do that. Hey, before we start in and let Brian just completely take over the show and talk about CrossFit, I want to tell you, anyone who's sending me like football stuff, stop. Like I see that organization as just Jew hating, black hating, homophobic, racist scumbags. Stop sending me anything from the NFL. I think they're a vile organization. They're.
So you want NBA?
No, yeah, right. Oh my God, it's just the worst. Like how could you support them at all? At all? It's like finding out your favorite Super Bowl team is being run. I mean. I hope that someday everyone starts thinking clearly, like they realize what they've been doing. Like what if you found out, just for example, like the stuff, like that's like the stuff that you were spraying on cracks to kill weeds, right? Let's say you found out that like really, like you knew that was poison and you knew you were spraying it in the cracks on your driveway and you knew it was killing weeds and you realized that you gave everyone in your family cancer. Then at some point, are you like, no shit, how did I not know that? If it's killing the weeds, it's obviously probably killing the people. And why did you call those plants weeds? I mean, like just some like clarity and levels of thinking. And it's going to be bizarre if that ever happens. Or maybe there's a heaven and a hell and you guys die and just get ass raped by Satan for the rest of your life. That would suck, but
woo.
Hopefully. All right, sorry. Hey dude, the season is among us.
Well, that's something we'll talk about.
This Wadapalooza amateur shit is over, and the CrossFit Games are here. Starting with an amazing community event called The Open, which, let's not forget, was only really created because there were too many people trying to get to the games. And so that it forced there to be a need for levels. And first there were sectionals, and then eventually Greg said, hey, this isn't scalable. And he said, let's use this technology of computers and stuff. And
we should also keep that exact thing you said in mind about the scalability for later on.
Okay. And so then
make a note so you don't forget.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Scalability semifinals.
Thank you. Isn't that weird? It's so, see how deep that is, you guys? Not only does he have to remind me of what to say later, but he has to remind me to take a note on what to say later. There's levels to that shit. And if I was really falling behind, he'd be like, Sevon, pick your hands up out of your pockets, put them on your keyboard and type. but I like it. Scalability. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do not like the show today, there's two people you can blame. I'm trying a new coffee. And Brian Friend, because this show is I'm leaning on him completely for the show. I beg him to come on and talk about game shit so that I can leverage the power of the community to launch into the stratosphere and become rich off podcasting. And then I use coffee to stimulate my brain. And then I harvest young talent like Caleb and Will the same way the Chinese government harvests kids to make iPhones. Okay. But they have nicer conditions. You see they have slightly nicer conditions, Will and Caleb.
At least have
green
one
screen.
couch.
I'm pretty sure these are staged rooms.
They are.
I'm actually in IKEA.
Oh, dude, that's a brilliant idea for a podcast. Hey, I'm gonna tell you something that I shouldn't tell anyone. I have this idea and I'm gonna pursue it. Maybe this weekend when I'll start, or this week I'll start doing it. I want to interview the first 100 people that fucking Joe Rogan interviewed.
You know, like half of them are himself, right?
That's fine. Well, I'll skip those ones, or I'll just beg him to come on. But I just think that there might be some good mojo. Like, just plagiarize that shit. Like, what are you doing? I just following after Joe, good old Uncle Joe. You see, Dan Bailey made a coffee called God's Country Coffee.
Yeah, it's not bad.
I did not, and oh, wow, you drank a shitload of that for free at Wadapalooza, Caleb?
Fuck yeah. I got the Dan Bailey special. They gave me a bag of coffee, a shirt, and a picture with Dan Bailey.
Seriously?
Yeah, no shit.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Is it because you ran up there and said, "Hey Dan, I work for the Sevon podcast. Can I have free coffee?"
No, I didn't say that at all.
Hey, the rest of you who are buying God's Country, if you're wondering why it's so expensive, it's because you're subsidizing the medical team's coffee at Wadapalooza.
Thank you. I appreciate your service.
Brian, I just listened. I don't know if we have anything to talk about today because I just listened to the Justin Bergh interview with Chase Ingram as I rode the assault bike. And basically, it's the same as last year. The games are identical to last year, more or less, for the elite teams and elite individuals. So whatever happened last year is just happening again, and except better. They've kept everything the same and then just having people do it better.
Oh.
Hey,
Whoa.
Can I just ask you some basic questions first, and then if you get annoyed with me, just take over and just like start texting me what you want me to ask you?
Sure.
Okay, what is the pathway to the CrossFit Games?
For the individuals, open, quarterfinals, semifinals, games.
Open, quarterfinals, semifinals, games. And how many workouts is the open?
3 weeks. We can assume 4 workouts.
We'll come back to that. That got me out. Like an A and B type thing.
Last year was the first time it was 3 weeks, and there were 4 tests embedded into the 3 weeks.
Okay. And then quarterfinals is how many?
I think there were five tests in the quarterfinals.
And is test like the official vernacular?
People have a debate about these things. I think that the word event gets used far too loosely, so I never know if they're talking about an event like Chaos or an event like Wadapalooza. So I try not to use that. So we have the workouts or the tests, and then the competition as a whole.
That's like when I was at CrossFit after Greg sold the company. Everyone I'd never heard any of the leadership refer to CrossFitters as athletes.
Matt Burns, there is a last chance qualifier. It's technically considered part of semifinals, and we'll talk about it later on.
Okay, semifinals. How many workouts in semifinals?
Semifinal programming, like last year, this year is completely up to the semifinal hosts, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
And how many are there normally?
6 or 7.
Your connections is the roughest it's been in a long time, Brian.
It is?
Yeah. You froze twice already on me. Very minor, very minor. When you freeze, I'll just be like Paper Street Coffee. That's what I'm drinking tonight. They haven't given me any money yet, but that's what I'm drinking tonight. You know what's crazy about this sponsor? I go, hey, dude, I already drink good dudes. He's like, I don't even care if you push my coffee. You can just say you drink good dudes. Maybe it's my connection is fucked up. All 3 of you froze. Okay. And then how many events in the games? Like 13 to 16?
12 to 15 generally.
Of course, I say 13 to 16. You have to say 12 to 15.
Well, I don't think there's ever been 16. So
And where are the last chance qualifiers?
online.
But in between the
After
semifinal.
semifinals, before the games.
Okay, last chance. And do we know if those are happening for sure?
They're in the rule book.
Okay. All right. What do we know? What's going on? The Open has started, right? People can like log in or register, start dumping their money to Berkshire.
You can register for the Open already, yes. And it's the first workout is going to be announced earlier than usual on February 24th. Usually it was 5 p.m. Pacific time, and this year they're announcing them at 12 p.m. Pacific time.
Okay, so something has already changed.
Something has already changed.
We're just starting right off. I just watched that video with Chase, and by the way, I don't rehearse any of this shit with Brian. But he said like nothing's gonna change. We're gonna not nothing. He said it's almost exactly the same. So it's gonna be earlier, and it's gonna be earlier in the calendar year, and in the Mayan calendar, February 24th.
Well, that's about when you would have expected it to start.
Oh.
But they've always announced the workouts at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and this year they're announcing them at noon Pacific time. But they're not. But the submission deadline and the back end hasn't changed, so you actually have a few more hours than usual to do the workouts should you want to.
Oh, that's cool. Kind of like Georgia's voting laws. It actually helps the people, but someone will complain. Okay.
I think they've made that change so that the announcement time is actually watchable for Europe, so it's not in the middle of the night.
Oh, I thought they did it because then the sun would be overhead and they could film and cut the budget by not needing as many lights at the filming area. But
might be one of those things where there's multiple benefits.
Right. Okay. So the Open goes on February 24th. They make the announcements. What day is that? That's a
Thursday, same as usual.
Okay. And then there's 3 weeks of that.
Mm-hmm.
And no, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I'll let you ask it.
And then there's 3 weeks of that. And then from there, they pick a chunk of people to go to the quarterfinals.
10% per continent to go to the quarterfinals, which will happen 2 weeks later.
Are we happy about this?
I'm okay with this.
And how much does it cost $20 to enter the Open? And
Yeah.
how much does it cost to enter the quarterfinals?
I think it's another. I can't remember that. I'm sure it's in the rule book, but if $50. Last year was $50.
Seems fair. It seems fair.
I remember because I got a sponsor to pay for my $50 entry fee.
Oh, is money that tight?
No, someone from the gym offered to sponsor me. It's kind of a joke.
Oh, that's really nice. Oh, because you have no chance of going, but they still.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so from those 10% from each continent, based on how many people entered. So if the continent was Antarctica and 25 people,
There's no Antarctic continent representation.
Okay, so if it was Asia and there were 10 people who entered, one of them would go to the quarterfinals.
Let's just say if 1,000 people registered, 100 would go, because
Okay.
otherwise the need for the quarterfinals and semifinals becomes futile in your example.
Okay, well, okay, good. And you're optimistic. You think the Open's going to be big this year?
Similar to last year's, my guess.
Okay. I don't. And then from there, those 10%, how many of them go to the semifinals?
In North America, 120 men and 120 women. In Europe, 60 and 60.
Okay.
In all other continents, 30 and 30.
And how many other continents are there?
Asia, Africa, South Africa, and Oceania.
Asia, Africa, and then did you say South Africa?
Sorry, South America.
Oh, it's okay. South America. What was the last one?
Oceania
That's Australia.
and New Zealand.
Okay.
And all the other small island nations that never have anyone representing them there.
Like Indonesia?
I think that's in Asia.
Okay. What do I know? So that's 120 plus 60 is 180 plus another 120 is 300. That's 300.
Men and 300 women.
Okay. And are we happy with that?
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Is it weird that Asia, Africa, South America do these regions all have the same amount of affiliates? Is that why basically, or I mean roughly same amount of affiliates? Like North America has twice as many affiliates as Europe, so they get 120.
It's not based on affiliates. I think it's based on open registration, and I don't think that the number of spots allotted at semifinals is based on open registration. I think it's number of spots at the games. So even though those are the numbers that are competing, 30, 30, 30, 30, they get different number of representatives at the games.
That aren't in this same ratio?
Yeah. So for example, Oceania gets 3 spots for the men and 3 for the women, but Africa only gets 1 and 1.
Wow, that's a trip. I'm tripping. Maybe I'm not thinking about it carefully. Okay, and how many does North America get?
They get 5 from each of their 4 semifinals, so they get a total of 20.
Uh-huh. And Europe?
Europe gets 5 from each of theirs, so they'll have 10 men and 10 women at the games. Oceania, I already told you, gets 3 and 3. Okay. Asia and South America get 2 and 2, and Africa gets 1 and 1. And it's actually exactly the same for teams.
So that's 30, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38 total.
And that leaves the last 2 spots for men and women for the last chance qualifier. And there is no last chance qualifier for teams, so they only get 38.
Wow. I thought I had you caught like all fucked up, like you did something wrong, because I knew there was supposed to be 40.
Right.
But I didn't.
Nope, not yet.
So this is the exact same as last year.
That format is the exact same as last year.
Okay, and what has changed? How many? So the Open is still 3 weeks. How many weeks is the quarterfinal or the time to? How many?
Quarterfinals happens over 1 weekend.
Okay, and is that the same as last year?
Yep.
And do we like that?
I'm okay with it.
And is it just immediately after? Does it just go? What's the break?
Week 3 ends 2 weeks later, and then like 2 Thursdays later, the quarterfinals start. Okay. And I think, and I know that some athletes wish that it was happening the very next week, but I think, there's that, like, the Open is that I don't know. They have the 2-week window in there just in case they need to do whatever things they need to do on the back end. And I don't think it's that bad because basically for the elite athletes, the Open plus the quarterfinals is like one competitive block is how I would view it. The Open's not that challenging for those athletes to advance through. The quarterfinals, they need to be a little bit more focused. The old Open used to be 5 weeks. So this is still a 5-week time period to get to semifinals, to qualify for semifinals. And it used to be a 5-week time period to qualify for regionals. So it makes sense in that regard.
Brian, hi. Brian Gamble. How are you, my friend? Sevon did not do his homework. Laugh out loud. Brian, I'm going to tell you a quick little story here about when I went to Armenia with my dad, and I wanted to interview some people who had lived through the genocide. It actually wasn't Armenia, it was Turkey. And I would ask the people a question, and my dad would answer. And after like 20 minutes of that, I'm like, hey, dude, you're supposed to translate what they say. And he's like, but I know the answer to your question. I'm like, that's not the point of the interview. The point of the interview is to hear it from them. I'm filming them. I'm a filmmaker. Like if we could have just stayed at home and I could have just talked to you from the couch while we just drank some Coors Lights. Do you understand what I'm saying, Brian? Brian Gamble? That's as nice as I can fucking be to you, you jackass. Okay. So that's good. And then we go to the semifinals, and how many weeks are those after this 1 week of quarterfinals?
Semifinals this year start on May 20th.
Ooh, I started getting warm when I started getting like so heated. I started like my head got warm. May 20th. Okay. And how far is that after the quarterfinals?
Basically 2 months.
Okay. And do we? Oh, now we're getting close to the games. Wait, there's 2 months between the.
Look. The Open's February going to be announced on February 24th, March 3rd, and March 10th.
Okay.
The quarterfinals will be announced on March 24th, concluding on March 28th, and then on May 20th starts the first week of semifinals.
And do we like that?
I think it's okay to have 2 months between the quarterfinals and semifinals. Yes.
Don't we want to just get all this shit over really quick so that the athletes can just start preparing for the game?
Well, now we're getting to an actually interesting topic.
Oh, sorry, Brian. You were right. I apologize. You're not a jackass. I'm a jackass. Okay, so yeah, so what's the plan here? I feel like I remember last year as we got to the last chance qualifier, they didn't have much time. Those guys were kind of screwed. And I was really concerned about those people because I remember people like Phil Toon also were already pretty beat up. And then he had to do the last chance qualifier. I'm like, man, if this guy makes it, he's screwed.
Okay, so let's we can start here if you want. We can talk about the semifinals and why I think that the announcement that they made this past week is I'm just not very impressed with it.
Okay. Is it different than last year?
No, it's not. It's not very much different than last year. But I think there's a much better format for athletes and fans that this could have been presented in.
Okay.
And so to the point that you talked about, basically, I don't like that that the semifinals are 4 weeks long. And if you look at the graphic there, you see that the last one ends on June 10th or June 12th. And then the last chance qualifier actually doesn't start until I think it's right about the start of July. And technically, as I mentioned earlier to that person's question, the last chance qualifiers are considered a part of semifinals. So this qualification process, it actually starts on May 20th, the first day of the first week of semifinals, and the last day of the last chance qualifier is July 1st. So that means that we're going to have, let's just say from May 22nd, the first qualifiers to the CrossFit Games will know that they've qualified at May 22nd, and the last people to qualify for the CrossFit Games won't know that they're qualifying till July 1st. And the gap in that amount of time, to me, is totally unacceptable as an organizing body of this sport at this point.
38 days.
Yeah.
And what's the fix?
What I would like to see is a 2-week-long semifinal period and no last chance qualifier. And the reason I would like to still have some spots open for extra spots, but not necessarily like I like the last chance qualifier spot idea because as I've written about a lot this year, not all of the regions, I don't think all the regions, I shouldn't even say based on competitive performance in recent history at the games, the distribution of game spots to different regions is not in proportion to their performance. And that's okay. And the last chance qualifier technically accounts for that. So if per my claim or the data that I've researched suggesting that the European women should get more spots to the games, if that was actually the case, the last chance qualifier is the spot for them to prove that. And they can just claim those 2 spots and get the 2 extra spots that they probably should have had anyway. But I think that there can be a better way to do that gives everyone that will eventually qualify for the games an equal opportunity to prepare for the games. And I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that on two fronts. One is you want to have all the athletes hopefully showing up to the games in their best form. And if you give everyone a similar amount of time to prepare for that after qualifying, and I think 1 week difference is not that significant, but I think over a month difference is drastically significant.
Well, it would actually be still more than a week. It would change it from 38 days to 24 days.
No. I'm talking about if you only had 2 weeks of semifinals.
Yeah, that's only going to take 14 days off of that 38.
Then the first qualifier let's just say they were the first 2 weeks. Then
right.
By May 22nd, we'd know half of the qualifiers, basically. Right. And by May 29th, we'd know the rest.
Right.
So half of the field would have qualified on the 22nd and half on the 29th. Right. Okay. And so there would have been, let's say you were in the first half, you'd have 1 additional week of preparation than me, as opposed to if you made it on the 22nd and I didn't find out I made it until July 1st, you've had 38 extra days to start preparing for the same test.
It's almost an entire cycle of whatever it is you need to get better at.
I don't think you're allowed to use that word cycle.
Oh, sorry. Another track.
Ah, there you go. There you go. Okay. Brian, real quick, someone in the comments says, what happened to the Granite Games in the MAC? And maybe they said something else. Am I not looking? Are we not looking at this right? What happened to those? Weren't those before events? That's where Hopper went from. And
Yeah. Well, so we can look at the announcement of those here if you want to, but I mean, yeah, sure. So there are still the announced events are Torian Pro, which is the same as last season, Lowlands, which is the same as last season, an unannounced North American semifinal in both weeks 1 and 2. The South African.
What do you mean by that unannounced? Like we don't know who's going to do it yet? That's what that CrossFit semifinal event is, just a placeholder?
Yes, and that's what this person, whoever you were just reading their comment, was asking about with regards to the West Coast Classic and Granite Games. We'll talk about that in a second. We see Cape Town on there. That's the same one as last year. And then we get into a couple new ones. Oh, I'm sorry. Weeks 1 and 3 have the unannounced semifinals, and week 2 has the Mid-Atlantic, along with the Cape Town one. In week 3, there's the Far East CrossFit Championships, along with an unannounced semifinal, and that's a new. I'm not sure if it's the same directors or not, but it's definitely a rebranding of that competition. So that's in many essences a new competition in Asia. That's going to be in Korea, and we can talk about that in a little while. And then the last week has 3 Copa Sur, which is another new competition that's going to be in South America. Strength and Depth, which is new to the semifinal rotation, replacing the German Throwdown. We can talk about that. But are you making all these notes when I say those things?
No, I should be.
but
Strength and Depth in Korea, were those the 2?
Yeah, and the unannounced ones, and the Far East. Oh, that's in Korea.
Wait, I want to. So sorry, I'm going to bounce back to you real quick. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about what you were saying before about the space and the duration. Maybe this is just because, like, hey, there has to be some sharing between what's best for the athletes and what's best for the fans. Maybe it's better for the fans and better for the sport that we spread this out so that I can watch for 4 weeks. Because if you make me watch it in 2 weeks, I'm not going to get. I'm probably not going to buy in as much. If I get to watch
strongly
it 4 weeks,
disagree.
No, okay. Why? But like, so like, look at, if on week 1 I can watch the Torian Pro. On week 2 I can watch this Cape Town one. On week 3 I can watch Far East Asia, and then week 4 I can watch Atlas Games. If you put them all in 2 weeks, I can't watch 2 of those.
Yeah, well,
here's the thing: ease of conversation.
Right. So I don't think that people are going to want to have to dedicate 4 or 5 weekends over a 6, 7, 8 week period of time to trying to figure out and keep track of everyone who's going through from different parts of the world. And there's not, like, just to be quite frank, there's not as much interest in some of these as the others. So when you look at, like, week 3 right now has the Far East Championships that are going to be taking place in Korea. It's going to be all the Asian athletes. And, you know, just as a reminder, last year all of the Asian athletes that qualified, the team didn't show up. The women didn't show up. 2 of the 3 men didn't show up, and the one who did show up didn't compete
because of travel.
He withdrew. Variety of different reasons. How
are travel? Okay, go ahead. We'll come back to that. I'll write that.
And part of the problem is that some of them qualified really late in the qualifying process, and therefore couldn't get everything situated they needed to in the amount of time that was allotted.
You mean visas?
Yeah, which to me is another benefit of having those things early, like having a 2-week semifinal that finishes before the end of May, and therefore you have 2 full months if you're an international athlete, especially with how difficult it's become to travel in and out of certain places now, to figure that out.
Hey, where is Roman? Which one does he do?
That's the Far East. And you know what? Honestly, I know that Snorri's been working on it this whole year, but if he doesn't have confidence that he'll be able to get to the games if he qualifies this year, I don't think he should compete. Because CrossFit's already shown that they're willing to hold that spot for him at the expense of another athlete. And much as
I don't know if I agree with that.
As much as everyone wants to see Roman at the games, I mean, I would love to see him there. I think he's a legitimate podium threat. But if he can't get there and he knows it, then I don't think he should compete, because I want to see a full field.
Yeah, but he needs to keep his name alive, right? He needs to keep the Roman hype alive.
Well, This is potentially another problem that can solve in the semifinal model that I'm presenting, because as it is, I'm not certain of this, but I think that the last chance qualifier allows for, how they have it now allows for the next missing out spots to get through. But I definitely don't think he should do the last chance qualifier if that's where he ends up again, because they're not going to backfill from that. That's the standard they've established last year.
Man, I don't know if I agree with that. You think it's unethical, immoral, bad sportsmanship?
No. I mean, look.
What if his sponsors are paying him money to qualify? Then he kind of got to.
Then I think that CrossFit should make some kind of a ruling and say, hey, man, they should intervene here and say, hey, you've qualified for the games each of the last 4 years and proven that you cannot make it there. We're not going to hold a game spot for you this year unless you can prove to us with documentation that you can. I
like that. It's their sport. Do what you want. I like that.
And therefore, he still, in that scenario, he would still have the opportunity to compete and earn the spot and potentially earn prize money from his sponsors for making it. Yeah. But CrossFit's going to, they're going to say, we're going to pass on his spot, even though he would have qualified because he hasn't shown that he can get here.
I know this is off subject just a little bit, but in the UFC, they'll have like someone there, and I don't know if it's the audience, but they got a backup fighter, right? So if some dude like shits his pants, breaks his leg, walking to the stage, whatever, Brian, you're up, and you get in the ring and fight the dude.
And Tyler Christoffel made a petition for this very thing, and Rich and guys at Mayhem wrote and outlined a very detailed thing. They say he's going to be at the games anyway. He would have been the next guy up. If Roman can't make it, can he please compete? And CrossFit said no, and I don't understand why they said no.
It's interesting. I mean, it's there. It's the thing. What the cool thing about the sport is they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah. And so, and look, we should acknowledge in having all the conversations that I'm sure there are things that are being talked about, in the back rooms of CrossFit that we don't have access to, and we don't understand some of the decision-making process.
Well, that's because we're not vaccinated. That's why you have to be vaccinated to go into the office. Well, Will could go.
But looking at it from out here,
but we wouldn't be allowed in.
This is what I really think about semifinals. I think that semifinals is an opportunity to create a lot of excitement around a condensed period of time in the season. That's like what are the problems with semifinals? I just think it needs to be easier to follow. It needs to be more rewarding for the athletes who actually perform well there than whatever the minimal amount of prize money that they won last year was. And it needs to be a more succinct qualifying process that gets everyone through via the same means and then gives them a similar opportunity to prepare for the next round.
Do you think it needs to be easier to follow in terms of its organization or in terms of its presentation?
So kind of both. What I would do if I had the opportunity to is I would schedule 5 on the first week and 5 on the second week, and I would space them out based on time zones as best as I could. So you might have something like, in week 1 you'd have either Australia or Asia. In week 2 you'd have, in week 1 you'd have Africa and
so it's
one of the European
24
regions.
Hours a day during those times. Yeah, that's
Africa
cool when it's like
and one of the Europeans. Then you'd have the other European paired with the South America, and then you'd have 2 of the East Coast North Americans and 2 of the West Coast North Americans split up. So you get an oceanic, far east one that's either from Asia or Africa, one that's from either Europe or Africa, whatever. You guys get the point. So that the time zones match up. So there's not a lot of overlap, and then you schedule the events in a condensed period of time within each time zone. With the athletes like this, so if you're going to only have 2 events, like it could be like a Wadapalooza style, where there's 2 events on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and they all happen within 4 hours.
Why do we care what the athletes want or like?
I care what the athletes want because I want them to be able to perform the best. And so if they know that they can come Friday night and they're going to compete between 6 and 9 p.m. and then they have 24 hours or 21 hours to prepare and come back on Saturday night and do the same, and 18 hours to come back and do it Sunday afternoon the same, then it's a predictable amount of time where we can actually see them execute workouts, feeling, whatever, good, having the chance to sleep, prepare. I don't think that stuff needs to be tested at the semifinal level. And I want to see under a uniform set of circumstances, the best 40 athletes get to the games. And when I say the best 40 athletes, I am okay with having the mandatory 1 spot from Africa, because I do see the buy-in there, and I'm supportive of that. I'm okay with one or two from South America. At this point, I only think there should be one from Asia. I'm fine with 3, even though I think it should be 4 from Oceania. But what I really think is, in this format, the programming should also be the same. The floor layout should be the same so that the digestibility of it's the same. And then at the end of the competition, you can take all the athletes that didn't qualify, rank them against each other like CrossFit used to do in the all-regional scoreboard, and the top 2 or 3, however many last chance qualifier spots you get, just come straight from that list.
Can you put that list back up there again? Sorry, Brian, the way my brain works, I know I'm just going back and forth with you. If the semifinals were to happen today, how many of these would have to go straight to online?
It's a good question. So,
because and I'm asking with the bias that we don't want that, right? We don't want that.
No, we definitely don't want that. And this is one of the things that was most disappointing to me about the announcement of these is, for example, so here's the thing. Ideally, they all happen live. However, in continents like Asia, Africa, Australia, and South America, where there's only one, if it's forced to go online, everyone in that continent has to qualify through the online format. What I do not want to see is something that happened in North America last year, which is where 3 of the 4 happen live and 1 of them is online. First of all, I don't really care about the online competitions because it's completely different, and I don't want people who are good at qualifying from online being, unjustly
you
represented at a
really
live competition. Yes,
that's really true.
Yes, 100% is it true.
Okay.
Even when they give you the fixed periods of time within to do it, if you're there on the starting line and you're about to start and you have to take a shit, you can say, hold on. Let me take a shit, and now we're going to start the workout. Pat Vellner didn't have that option in the games, and you never have it in live competition. You start at the time you start, and everyone has to get ready for it at the same time, no matter what. Plus, it's different doing it against the clock or against yourself than it is doing it against someone else.
Let me throw one more out there. Did anyone not make it who you think should have made it? It would have made it if it was live. Like, just pop in your head.
Possibly, yes.
Pop in your head. Like who? Just throw one name out there.
Logan Collins.
Okay, fair enough. And is there anyone, and I won't ask you the other way because it's just not nice. And I'm a nice person. Okay. So let's go back to this. Who right now is so fucked up, is so
There's
tyrannical. 3. Okay, which ones?
Korea.
And of course, and before you say this, of course, there's the 3 events that we don't even know where they're going to be in North America.
2.
And okay, go on.
It just looks like there's 3 because of the way they wrote the Mid-Atlantic one. It looks basically the same as the unannounced ones.
Oh, but it's not. Okay.
But currently, Korea, South Africa, and Canada would be 3 that give me a red flag in terms of I'm not so sure they'll be able to host live events or that it's practical for all the athletes in that region to travel there and be well prepared to execute at those live events.
And we don't know right now if they can or not. We're not sure. Just the 4 of us sitting here, just 4 dudes.
I mean, I was sent something when this was announced about the current status of entering and quarantining in Korea, and it looks like there's currently a 10-day quarantine there. The thing is, if there were no other options available, that would be one thing. Yeah, this is the link to that, and I think this is currently the case.
Stop there a second. Let me see this. This is current. This is like as of right now.
I think so.
All transit passengers receive a temperature check on arrival in Korea. Symptomatic individuals will be subjected to a COVID-19 test and hospitalization if found positive. Wow, you go to a hospital if you're found positive? Passengers who do not show symptoms and are test negative may continue their journey. Transit passengers at Seoul Airport require ticket boarding. Transit hotels are available. Okay, so that's not bad. You just got to just hope you don't get it on the plane or like get a cold on the plane. You're good to go. Testing on arrival, all foreign from January 20th, 2022, South Korean requires that the test must have been taken within 40 hours prior to departure. Test must have taken. The default requirements when entering South Korea is to quarantine. Oh, here we go. Quarantine and quarantine exemptions. To quarantine for 10 days at home if you are a resident of South Korea or in a government quarantine facility if you are visiting. That is okay. Which countries? Can you just name off 5 countries that would need to go there? I know it's more than 5.
From Asia?
Yeah. Is that all the UAE guys, all those guys too?
Yeah.
Middle
Anyone
East?
anyone from the Middle East, Russia, obviously, China, South
Oh man.
India.
Oh man. Why did they choose there?
I don't know.
Can we
And
see?
so here's the thing. So when you're asking why did they choose any of these places, the thing you have to ask yourself is, well, what could they have done instead? And how do we know? And what we know is they could have chosen a place like the UAE because we just saw a competition happen there where people traveled from all over the world and didn't encounter very many problems getting there and were able to compete at a high level. We all know that can happen in the United States. Now, we know that it can't happen in every state in the United States, which is why the West Coast Classic didn't take place in California last year and the Mid-Atlantic didn't take place in the Washington, D.C. area. They moved to states that were more open and therefore available to host a live competition. We've seen this happen in Texas with the Rogue. We've seen it happen in Florida with Wadapalooza. So we know of at least 4 places in the United States, Tennessee, Las Vegas, Texas, and Florida, that can host these competitions. Now, it should be said that Canada is fully deserving of a semifinal, and I think that in any normal year, they should definitely have one semifinal out of the 4 that are hosted in North America. However, I don't understand why they would choose that as one of the 4 this year when there's not any real proven evidence of Canada being able to host any live competition yet. And we have seen Canadians travel to the United States, compete, and do very well, but we haven't seen anyone go to Canada and do really anything at all.
I heard a rumor that the Touring Pro is being held in a quarantine camp. I heard that also, by the way. I didn't want to spread that, but does anyone here know? You know how like you can turn on the TV and like anytime you can see like I can't go to my liquor store without being yelled at for not having a mask, but like, 100 miles away, there's a stadium full of people. That's just the way we're rolling in the United States, right? Like the games, the games went on last year. We had the largest boxing match in the history of the United States last year in Dallas, while the rest of the country was locked down. 70,000 people in the stadium to watch Canelo fight, or was it Houston? Anyway, do we know of any events happening in Canada? Like, are there any Canadians listening? Like, can you tell us, do you guys have anything going on? Like, is there any, there's evidence in the United States that big shit's still going on. We just had UFC last night in Anaheim, which is really weird that happened in California. They have hockey games going on with fans. All right. So that's interesting, right? Matt Burns is saying.
So it might be able to happen. I would have liked to have seen CrossFit say something along the lines of, we recognize the excellence of the Canadian CrossFit community, the high-level competitors that they have, and that they have the capacity to, and have shown in the past, the capacity to host high-level competitions. But this year, given the way that things are up there, we're going to, instead of having a competition hosted there, we're either going to have 4 North American competitions, or we're going to run the Atlas Games, but we're going to do it in the United States where we know that we can have live competition.
So, just to be clear, we're not, it's more important. The most important thing, if there was a hierarchy, is to have them live. The destinations don't really matter other than accessibility. That's the word for 2022. That's like your theme. Hey guys, like if all the Chinese people have to do their fucking competition in Texas, so be it, if they can get there, if that's the most accessible place, or if the most accessible place is Hawaii or whatever. You want to see accessibility.
I think even above that, what I want to see is consistency by continent. I think that we can at least strive for that. So,
okay.
If Oceania is not able to host any events because of the government policies, then they can still run an online competition in Oceania, but there's only one semifinal there, so everyone's doing it that way, and so they go through. What happened in North America last year is some people preferred to have the live competition, and were not able to get there. CrossFit, based on their rules and decision-making process, denied some people that option. And other people who wanted to compete in an online format didn't get it. And so you had this, like, people are trying to prefer one or the other based on whatever they think is gives them the best chance to qualify. And I don't think that should be the case. And I think that it's preventable.
I thought you were going to say something else for it to be balanced, that there should be 2 events. There should be one online and one live, and that the athletes should get to choose which one they go to. But you're just saying if they're – so basically what you're saying, if I heard you right, if they're going to be online, make them all online.
Mm-hmm. I mean, At least by
Fair, you do you believe in fairness? I don't believe in fairness. Rob Orlando is running up the hill at the 2009 CrossFit Games. Crazy event. Never really haven't seen that much carnage in a short event ever. I mean, maybe we saw it. Yeah, I haven't seen that much carnage ever. And he gets to the top and he's just a pile of shit, just hurting. And I go, hey, I put the mic in his face. I'm like, do you think these events are fair? Because he was shorter. And he goes, nothing about CrossFit is fair. It's like, oh, that's cool.
Brian, how do like North American athletes pick their semifinal? Obviously, some based off where they are located, and then do they talk
Great
amongst
question.
each other to see who's going where? Or is there any formal way of people knowing who's going where to play it out?
Yeah, didn't it used to be to piggyback on Will? Didn't it used to be like if you're from Florida, like you got to do like one over there in that corner of the country, and if you're from the Northwest, you got to do one at the BLM Center or whatever. Like you got to like do your region.
Section 4.03 of this year's rulebook explains this in a fairly concise yet not specific manner. For North America and Europe, CrossFit will seed and place the athletes in a semifinal before invitations are sent. CrossFit will make every effort to ensure the seeding process will be fair and equitable. Quarterfinals ranking distribution and the geographical location of athletes will be the primary determining factors for competition seeding in North America and Europe. Noteworthy here is that last year they also sent out to the athletes in those regions a preference list, and they could rank which one they wanted to compete at first, second, third, and fourth. And so my understanding is last year that they used the two things that are listed in the rule book, which was the quarterfinals ranking and the geography, along with the athlete's preference to distribute the athletes according, fairly and equitably, to use their language. In the rule book this year, it doesn't include anything about asking the athletes. So I don't know if that's something they're planning to do again or not. It says new next to it, which makes me think that maybe they're not going to consider the athlete's preference this year.
I think it's funny that in the new section they use the word equitable. No one knows what that word means, by the way. That's just fucking crazy woke terminology. To ensure the seeding process will be fair and equal is what they mean. But it's nice that they put new so you can go over there and look at their bullshit. Okay. So they have what did you say? It's concise but not specific. They basically have a lot of wiggle room by saying that they're going to try to be fair and equitable.
Yeah, and I don't really know why that's needed at all. What I would do, and I did this last year on my own, I just took the 120 men in North America and I ranked them like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and just made lists that way. And then after they were made, I did a random draw, and it was list 3, Mid-Atlantic, list 2 over here, list 1 here, list 4 there. Boom. That's how you're distributed. It's based on your performance, and it's your job to get there.
Yeah, I like that. Victor, it's a capital F in CrossFit. Let's not see that again. Thank you. All right. Go on, Brian. What were we going to say?
So what about those athletes that are like, weren't there a bunch of athletes last year that had to travel like crazy miles just to get to their semifinal, or was that just like a one-off? I honestly can't remember specifics. But
are you talking about athletes like Tia Claire Toomey, who trains in North America but would need to compete in Oceania?
Yes.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What is the rule on that again? Are they going to give wiggle room this year? Do you like that? Does that make sense? I don't think you should have to compete. There's got to be, like, how long does someone have to live here? Is it based on your citizenship, your passport? What's it based on?
It's in here somewhere, but I don't think anything's changed as far as that's concerned. And again, last year they had.
I like the wiggle room they gave people last year, by the way. I like the fact that they didn't make Tia go back and do all that quarantine shit. That's the cool thing, once again, about they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, and it was a matter of that because I don't think they'd addressed that in the rule book, and then it came to their attention that was potentially going to be a problem for certain people. So they made a kind of in-season decision about that. But then as a result of that, there were other like fallouts from it, which is now because Tia's competing here, or not just Tia, because anyone who's competing as what I call the displaced athlete in a different continent, that semifinal that they're competing in, whether it's the only one in the continent or one of 4 or one of 2, gets an extra spot in the last chance qualifier, which is, again, just only adding unnecessary complication to these things. in the format that I'm presenting, everyone technically has a chance in the last chance qualifier. All you have to do is be the next best 2 or 3 of all the people who didn't make it. And guess what? Those are the ones that everyone wants to see at the games anyway.
That's the least relevant to qualify, though, too, right?
What?
The last chance qualifier. It should be our smallest concern.
I totally disagree with that, again, because, for example, we know that in one of the European semifinals last year, there were 5 women who made it. And before that semifinal ever happened, I said there are 6 women who can finish in the top 20 at the games in this semifinal, and only 5 of them are going to get a chance to go from the semifinal. One will have to go to the last chance qualifier and hope to be able to make it through there. And those 5 women that made it through to the games all finished 13th or better at the CrossFit Games. And the woman who didn't make it historically outperforms them in live, at least 2 of the 5 in live competition. But she didn't get to do any live competitions last year because she had to do open, quarterfinals, semifinals, and last chance qualifier online.
Was that Emma Tall? Who was that?
That was Karen Frey. And we
And
didn't get to see her compete in Dubai this year because of injury. And it's, I feel really bad for her. I think I think she could have been top 10 at the games this year. And and yet still no one knows who she is.
Wait, so she didn't qualify at the last chance qualifier. Emma
Right.
Tall beat her?
Yeah.
Okay. How did she do at the games?
Emma Tall, I think she was 19th, 18th, something like that. 20th?
26, I think.
No, she made it through the top 20, but she was in the bottom 3 of those 20.
I know why you said 26, though.
Who's 26? Is someone?
Sydney McCallishan?
Nope. Another young and Ellie
Turner.
Ellie Turner.
Yeah, you're good, dude, Willie.
Same initials.
I had a question for you. Oh, what about this, Brian? What about hey, man, fucking, it's crazy. They got the CEO who's out on mad cow disease of the brain. They got their head of the CrossFit Games is out because you can't fucking work with the dude. He's an asshole. No, he can't. He doesn't know how to play nice and collab. You got a new CMO that's supposed to be promoting the games. They got so many fucking changes going on. They're just all right, let's just keep this. We got so many new moving pieces. Let's just keep everything else kind of the same, and everyone just hold tight. We have, you know what I mean? They already have the schematic. They have the venue.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. If you're going to make a big change, and this is the biggest problem that I generally have with the change in terms of getting rid of Dave, is follow it up with something meaningful. Follow it up with something exciting. And the timing and and what happened on the back end of it to me was a total letdown. I wasn't
We're getting
surprised.
rid of Dave, and we're banning all Latins from the games. How's that? How's that for big?
Well, whatever.
South of San Diego, eat a dick. Yeah, I get you. Hey, you know what? Swimming's racist. No more swimming. Castro's gone. We got the white dude in. He cares. He's equitable. No swimming at the game. Something big. Hey, you know what's crazy? Off subject just a tiny bit. Is prior to Dave being fired, I would speak to him periodically, and I remember one conversation. He's like, "Man, oh man." I'm like, "What?" He's all, "Man, Justin is really, really hitting me up for the open workouts, every day, just bugging me, putting a lot of pressure on me." I goes, "Is that? I thought that was normal." He goes, "No, this is out of control. This is crazy. This is too much. Something weird's going on." Well, I was listening to that interview. Make sure I got it right in my notes.
You got it right. I know where you're going.
And Justin said, I think it was actually a pretty fair thing. Justin said, Chase said, "Hey, how long did you know? How long did you know that these changes were coming?" And he said, "Sooner than I wanted to." And I'm not comfortable saying anything more. Meaning that whoever the powers that be, assuming that, let's just say it's Rosa, had told Justin, "Hey, we're gonna kick Dave to the curb," which is kind of crazy. I mean, I don't know how you're supposed to do it, but it's kind of crazy to tell, because Justin reports directly to Dave, and they're telling Justin, "Hey, we're going to get rid of Dave." So then it sounds like then Justin was like, "Oh shit, I better get those open workouts for him before they kick him to the fucking curb." I don't know. I'm just making the connection. I got to get TDC on the, you guys just give him a fucking few $1,000,000 and send him on his way so I can have him on the show. That one's going to be huge. Huge. Can't wait. God, I hope he does us. What if he does something like Jimmy Kimmel before me?
That would be. I don't know if I'd be mad about that.
Oh,
I'd rather it be
stop.
Jimmy
Willie.
Fallon though. Jimmy
Yes.
Fallon.
Probably
yes.
say he's coming on your
Trash.
show next, and then it would just.
Oh, that's Dave always has a plan. He'd go on Jimmy Fallon and say, "Yeah, no, I'll actually be going on the Savon podcast next week."
Oh, that would be good. Brian, I have a question. Sorry, and I'm derailing you. Who's Heather on the game? Is there a Heather on the games team?
I don't know. Heather.
Because Justin was talking about in that interview that there's a lot of experience, and he threw up someone's name with Johnny Mack, and then he said Heather, and they'll help push. They're going to help keep this shit together and keep rolling down the hill. I know obviously who Johnny Mack is. I was just wondering who Heather is. I'm like, how the fuck do I not know who Heather is?
She must be a part of the going forward plan.
So, that's what I'm guessing. I'm guessing it's felt like it was political. But another thing is Justin said our job is to make it easy to be a fan. I mean, I know I'm just toxic.
And I know that not everyone agrees, but I do think that you could really sell a 2-week semifinal with uniform events, with uniform floor layouts. Everyone could understand what they're watching. You don't necessarily have to watch all 5 of them. You don't have to stay up all night to do it. CrossFit's proven that they can do this before in terms of bringing in whatever team or crew to catch you up on the things that happened while you were sleeping. You can still have the YouTube accessibility, and they can say, if you didn't get to see it, you got to go back and watch Torian Pro Final Heat Men's. It was 5 athletes, 3 seconds coming down to the wire. Or you could just play the clip as you're talking about it, and people could see what they missed. And you still could have it so that the featured semifinals are during, prime time hours, so to speak.
And I think a big part of that is the timing, because if you watch one of them and then you see the workouts laid out exactly the same, and then you hear the times from later event, you can picture it in your head. Oh, they got 5 minutes and 40 seconds on that workout I watched with chest to bar and thrusters and blah 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 blah. And so it makes some sense to you without even having to watch it or having to watch clips.
Matt Burns, all about the money. So I don't know. I think that it would be more easy to sell a 2-week package. We're gonna have, this is like besides the games, this is the next biggest part of our season right here. We'll sell it to you in 2 weeks. We're gonna have it on one broadcast station if you want to try to do that. I don't know. The 4 weeks things with some of the weeks there's a lot more interest than others.
Our boy Tyler's throwing rocks at us. Please, I'm going to throw in some extra words that he didn't say. You guys, I just remember. Please, Brian, please. I beg of you. The regionals were so, as my son would say, boring. By the last week, watching the same programming was terrible. Well, maybe if it was better programming. What about that?
I just disagree, and it's okay. I enjoyed watching different athletes around the world do the same workouts and see, I could kind of get a better idea of where everyone was at relative to each other moving forward and heading into what I would be hopeful would be another 2-month preparation period for the games. Then there's things for analysts and us to talk about and compare. We don't have all the problems that we had last year where certain people had to have the capacity to do deficit 6-inch strict handstand push-ups on parallettes at one region, and at the other region, they never had to do that. They just had regular kipping handstand push-ups. It's a totally different qualification process. 6 events versus 7. Jason, you should know more than anyone how much of an effect one additional event can have and who makes it through. We had events like the Granite Games where their long event was really 2 events that were condensed into one, but we didn't have a long monostructure element in that, but we did in all the other regions. There was so much inconsistency, and it's so easy for athletes to point and say, I could have done better there than here, but I didn't even get a choice to go there or here. I had to compete online because I live in Canada. I wasn't even given the option, even though I proved that I could be in the United States to do this. And all of these things that everyone's complaining about, just take the variables away. That way we can see who's actually the best with whichever the test is this year, and we can get all of those athletes to the games where they're again going to take the same test. They took all the same tests in quarterfinals in the Open. Why do we have this one outlier where it's totally random and variable across the entire world?
It's not that I don't care about what the athlete. Why do you call him Jason and I call him Tyler? What the fuck?
I call him Jason when I'm mad at him.
Oh, okay. True leadership doesn't give a fuck what anyone thinks, but they take in all the inputs. It's weird. I need to figure out how to word this properly. Like that was something that Justin said, and you just, that they're trying to build a listening machine. No. Like you shouldn't let them. You shouldn't. Yeah, I need to. I need to work on that thought a little bit. Go ahead, Caleb.
Ultimately, they're the ones making the decision. So they have to take all the inputs and everything, but outside, eventually, you just have to say, I don't give a fuck what you're saying. This is the decision I want to make, and this is what I think is what's right for the community or the athletes or whatever, and then you make that decision. So
yeah, like what Brian's doing, kind of like what I mean. It's easy for Brian to stay. He's got nothing on the line, right? It's not his company, it's not his money, it's not his. But it needs to be someone who has a strong, like, hey, this is the fucking way it's gonna be.
Exactly.
And even if you don't think it's best for you, it is best for you. I mean, because at the end of the day, everyone's just looking for a strong leader to get us across the finish line and make it so we could do it again better next year. And better has nothing to do with really the athlete's happiness. They're going to do it anyway.
I don't know about that. I think that I think that now more than ever, if you're CrossFit, you want to make sure that the athletes are bought into the system that you're rolling out. Because you just
agree less.
Do you
couldn't agree less?
Yeah, I couldn't agree less. Yeah. I don't think they matter at all. It's like the UFC.
If there pops up another option that's more appealing to them, then it matters quite a bit. Because if you lose the athletes, then you're not going to have the interest.
Well, that might be a problem they have regardless.
Yeah, it might be true, and that's why I'm saying that they should have a thing that's very appealing to the athletes that they're rolling out. And I know that that's not the case. I can guarantee you that any athlete who's going to the games is going to say 38 days between the first qualifiers and the last qualifiers is a joke.
Right. But it wouldn't matter if everything else was chugging along. Let me just explain to you how
it would matter less.
Let me if you go to the games and you do well and you put on 300,000 Instagram followers as opposed to going to Wadapalooza or Rogue and doing well and only putting 10,000 Instagram followers, you don't give a fuck about anything else if you're those guys. Like I know I'm oversimplifying it a little bit, but that's what it comes down to.
Well, I think it's as long as they retain the title, the fittest on earth, as a copyrighted title that you win when you win the CrossFit Games, and people still see it as a test of achieving who's the fittest on earth. Despite if a couple athletes, high-level athletes disappear to another event, then it's still so valuable that a lot of those things won't matter as much.
Yeah, I mean, I've always maintained the contention that the name CrossFit, the name fittest on earth, and those things will carry a lot of weight. But if $1 million prize purse pops up for, where everyone in the field is making a minimum of 20 grand and the winner's taking $1 million, I don't think anyone's going to blink an eye. They're going to show up for that instead.
You think like the fitness, like the whatever that body is that's trying to get into the Olympics? You think people start going there? Yeah.
No. They've been around already for a while. They have chosen to go down a path that's a long road to hoe, the IF3 and the pursuit of that. And they have some participation from some big names in the sport, but most of them are not drawn by that right now.
Look at this guy's name, Kason Wise Song. He lives in Korea. Is the title? He took his wife's name. Is the title copyrighted? The Spartan Games they use that title too. I know they have some fittest competition thing going on that Sam Briggs entered. I don't know how she did. I know Hunter McIntyre talked about it. They already know who won. I think it's the second year in a row they've done it. Do we know who won the first year that event? We're off subject. Okay. What are some of the biggest problems you're going to see happening that are going to affect the games, Brian, as we go down this? Is it all travel again? Is it all just pandemic shit?
No, I mean, the big picture is you're still going to get a majority of the athletes who should be at the games to the games, and it's still going to be a good competition. But I think you'll miss out on basically. I think that the bottom 5 to 10 in each division will be a less impressive group of athletes than it could be in a different model. And I also think that you're going to get less prepared versions of some of the athletes based on the time frame that they have to prepare, depending on when they have to do their semifinal or if they have to go through the last chance qualifier. And that's what I really don't want to see. I like you asked me about the time frame, and it makes sense to me. 5 weeks to get to the semifinal stage, 2 months to prepare for it. And then if we had 2 weeks to sort all the details out there and go from those 300 athletes to 40 in each division, and then 2 months to prepare for the games. It just makes it like it's nice, it's clean, and that is in alignment, by the way, with CrossFit in general. When people are programming, etc., they like to have that
100%.
consistency, the even numbers or the odd numbers or whatever. And I like I said, I know I'm not involved in all the backroom talks at CrossFit, and but from sitting over here, that's something that just seems so easy, so obvious. Just like picking locations that are most likely going to be able to have live events instead of risking picking locations that we know have imposed limitations already and creating inconsistencies. You're just creating opportunities for people to complain instead of creating an environment in which everyone can say, no, you know what, this is the same for everyone, and I can see that they're trying their best to make it that way. And so, yeah, let's go with it.
Especially in a year when they need to hit the home run.
Right.
In a year where we can't believe it, but we're still having these, COVID response variabilities across the globe that are extreme.
And what they should really do is support me in having as many athletes on as possible. They're lucky that they don't have to, that I'm just going to go fucking crazy and interview fucking everyone who's going to the games this year who will come on. But the thing that I do you should really pick me up and put me in the bus. I mean, you can't afford me now; it's too late. But you should have, because it's going to be suck because I'm going to be in the bus, but you guys didn't put me in the bus. It's going to get weird. It's going to get really weird. Sorry, go ahead, Brian. And then I want to talk to you about Annie Thorisdottir and her team, not specifically like her, a bunch of stuff around her team, but how the implications of that has for other teams also. Go ahead, Brian. Sorry, before we go to that.
How long of a bus did you want?
It doesn't matter. They should have just picked me up. Instead, I fucking snuck in through the fucking tailpipe. And it's like, it's going to get really weird for them when I'm fucking under the hood and in the engine. And it's just going to be weird. Like, you don't want a scumbag like me fucking just crawling around. You want to be like, you want to have me in a cage. Scumbag's a little harsh. I'm not a scumbag. I'm just, I'm like a child. Like someone said the other day, you don't know how to have fun. I go, I know how to have fun. I would just love to sit with like 1,000 beer bottles and throw them against a wall and break them. That'd be awesome. That I'd have safety goggles on because I'm old and mature. But what's going on with Annie and that team? At first I was like, Annie, what are you doing? You have a chance to win the games. And then part of me is like, no, this is kind of cool. She's going out like doing really, really well. We'll remember her as one of the best who ever. But these guys don't live in Iceland. Do you have to all be in Iceland?
We can and this is like the very, very first thing that you said at the start of this podcast, which the season is upon us. Technically, the season's been upon us for 10 days, at least as far as the teams are concerned. There's a section, it's 1.14 in the rule book that explains this, and it's pretty straightforward. And it was brought to my attention on the back of this announcement the other day that if you want to compete on a team this year at the CrossFit Games, you have to have established residency and prove that you have established residency by January 23rd, 2020, January 13th, 2022.
Wait, and what does that mean, established residency?
They give specifications in the rule book that you have to be able to prove that you have either like an electric bill or a driver's license there, or here's some examples. The athletes are active, so they live within 100 miles of the affiliate. They list utility bill, driver's license, etc. as options. The athletes are active members of an affiliate. That means they have signed waivers, client management software, whiteboard pictures, social media posts that document that they are there and competing there. And finally, athletes are regularly training there, tracking software, whatever. So they list specific things for this, and I have no idea why January 13th is such an important date. I think it's totally a miss on CrossFit's part because, as you just mentioned, we're coming off the back of Wodapalooza. And anyone who's familiar with the CrossFit Games or the CrossFit off-season events, and this is something that I think Dave was missing on for all his years, and I think that a lot of people at CrossFit HQ also are missing on, is that they weren't ever paying attention to the off-season. They were just focused on the game season. And I'm not saying that they should have been totally invested in it in the way that I might be, but being aware of what's going on around you is probably an important thing to do if you're managing the season in which these things also kind of exist. And so you should know that as CrossFit, that a lot of athletes are going to go to Miami to be at Wodapalooza, either on a team, as an individual, or like we saw with dozens of high-level games athletes this year, for sponsorship opportunities, fan engagement opportunities, etc. And because of that, what I would have done is assumed, especially in a year where all the travel around the world is still more difficult than it's ever been, that a lot of athletes would have Wodapalooza as the last event on their off-season calendar, whether they're competing or not, and then make their move to wherever they want to be and settle in for the rest of the season. So if it were me and I was going to impose any kind of deadline like this, I would have just made it February 1st. That way you have 10 days on the back of Wodapalooza to go wherever you want to do, get everything lined up. It's still 24 days before the Open starts, and you have no complications like this.
Wait, what was the date you would have used? What date?
February 1st.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. Can you, while Brian's talking, can you open up like Tola's Instagram? I want to see something. This isn't, by the way, this isn't an attack on these guys in specific. I think I like all these guys. I mean, I like the little bit I know.
No, and what I'm saying is, if this rule of January 13th, that to me, again, without having the backside information, seems completely arbitrary and also misguided based on what the layout of the off-season competition schedule is for CrossFitters, ends up preventing them from being able to compete, then it's just a total miss by CrossFit again.
Let me click on that one with his fingers up, the peace symbols, and that's posted on December. Oh, okay. So we don't know. So, and where is this? This is in Dubai. So we don't know. We don't. This guy, for all we know, let me say his name right.
It's possible that they all went to Iceland at some point between the end of Dubai and Wodapalooza and established residency and checked all the boxes. I don't know that to be true or not true. Right. I don't care if it's true or not true.
Right,
I'm not talking about this team in this regard, and I'm not talking about any other teams that are struggling or not struggling with this. What I'm talking about is CrossFit imposing an arbitrary date of January 13th. That's basically a few days before the biggest off-season event. And by biggest, I mean the most people are going to be in attendance there in a year where travel is very difficult already, instead of just recognizing that and making the date a few weeks later. And I don't think it's not relevant at all. January 13th, why is that important?
They did move to Iceland. Joshua Beaton.
Teddy Williams said that that's the day that open registration started.
Fine. Great. Why? Why does it need to start it then? I think in fact maybe that they started it on January 13th because they knew that Wodapalooza was going to happen and that they could promote it in an event that was going to be viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. And if that's the case, then the awareness that actually exists there should be also applied to this thing about the teams, in my opinion. And just because open registration is January 13th, I don't think that it's inappropriate for teams to make permanent moves for the season after the last major off-season event. I mean, that's just logical. Like Ricky Garrard, for example.
At all.
Think about Ricky Garrard, for example.
Yeah.
Let's say that Ricky wanted to come to Vegas to compete on a team, one of Justin Cotler's teams this year, and he wanted to move his whole life over there.
Which he did.
Which he was planning to do that. He was going to go to Dubai, go to Miami, and then go settle in for the season. He ended up making a different decision to go home and do that, but that makes so much logical sense for him. And what doesn't make any sense at all is to go to Dubai and then fly to Vegas and then fly to Miami, and then make all these extra trips in between.
I think it was a choice to advertise at Wodapalooza because they advertised the Open at least 200 times during the event. So
you heard it over the intercom too.
Hey, they could have moved it up too, Brian.
What?
They could have made the rules more stringent. They could have said by December 1st.
Sure.
It is a weird day to choose, it was the start of Wodapalooza.
Basically.
Yeah, it's just such a weird day. Either choose a month before that so people can get their shit together, or choose a week after that so people have time to fly to their new spot. And a month after that would have been February 1st, let's say. A week after that. Interesting. Okay, these are well, once again, let me go back to this thing. Brian will not be satisfied. He's sounding like Sevon. Oh, easy, buddy. Dan, your mom. I never said anything about your mom not satisfying me. It was fantastic. It was beyond my expectations. That's the shit that gets me in trouble with my mom. Darn it.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah, sorry. But every show needs one of those. I still think it's a lot to ask. you had a great response last time. I still think it's a lot to ask for these kind of changes and this kind of thinking when there's basically probably just a massive power vacuum. I'm assuming that Justin is really trying to live up to the role as being a leader. I'm assuring that there's a lot of people who it's shaky ground. I don't want to say anything because I actually don't want to be a bitch. I don't want to I've dropped enough fucking bombs on these guys. I don't want to, even though I know stuff, I don't want to just start spouting it. But change is hard. Change is really, really, really hard. But Brian also said that it's a really great point. Like if you're going to get rid of Dave, like
here's the thing. Making an announcement like that, you know that it's going to cause division. Some people are going to like it. Some people are going to hate it. Some people are going to be vocal about it. Some people will make their silent stance by not registering for the Open, whatever. And on the back of something that's a divisive announcement, you should have something that brings people together. So I think that it would have been a good, first of all, I don't know why they chose to do it at that time. I think that it would have made a lot more sense if they were going to do it in September, maybe September 1st, a month after the games, let everything settle, make that announcement. Now you have 6 months before the Open. You guys know how things are. People getting all up in arms about the election. 6 months later, everyone's just living with it because whatever, what else are you going to do? We would have been well past this by now. But to announce it so close to the start of the season and right between Dubai and Wadapalooza when everyone's kind of already paying attention and getting bought back into what's going on, and then not to have anything on the back end of it that was something that everyone could rally around and say, well, like it or not, Dave's gone, but at least this is something else that they've given us that's something to look forward to. And that's what I would have done, regardless of timing.
Will you pull up the semifinals again? Brian, is there anything else here that stands out at you that's just like, is there anything else you want to say about these actual locations and these events? Is like anything that glaring, the unknowns make me uncomfortable, but like, who the fuck am I? Like, what do I care? Like, I'm sure they're going to find spots for them. Or let me ask you that. Do you have predictions for these spots? This North American semifinal, where does O'Keefe leaving Wadapalooza? How does that affect any of this shit? What's Wadapalooza going to do now? Or like, So no, sorry, not Wadapalooza. So Loudon Live, I picture is this company, right? I think they're out of South America. I think I met the owner, Colombia or something like that. I met him, tall, handsome guy,
Marco.
And they have different, the Pistachio Festival, fucking Guns N' Roses. They do different whatever.
Lots of events of lots of different kinds. Loudon Live Sport is a branch under Loudon Live.
Thank you. And Matt O'Keefe ran that, and underneath that Loudon Life Sports was the Granite Games, Wadapalooza, and the California Classic or West Coast Classic. What happens to those? Do we know?
No,
are those gone now, or has he been replaced?
These are all good questions that I don't necessarily have the answers to. I don't know that Loudon Live has necessarily made the hiring process or redistribution of responsibility decisions on the back end of him leaving. But I do think that the West Coast Classic and Granite Games were originally supposed to be part of the semifinal season this year, and that CrossFit was planning to make this announcement a little bit earlier in this week than they actually did, including those competitions. And then when they found out that O'Keefe was going to be leaving Loudon Live, he's a huge part of running those competitions. And I should say also, it's not easy to run those competitions, and all of the people that are doing that, regardless of if they're whatever country they're in or whatever the season ends up looking like, it's a big undertaking to do it and to do it well, especially in this environment where CrossFit's not mandating a uniform programming or a uniform floor layout or a uniform scoring system. So there's a lot of
not even the scoring system's uniform. None of that's uniform?
No.
How about the number of events?
Not uniform. So
but if you fucked up, they would do something crazy. Like you'd be done. Like if you went there and it was like burpee, event 1, burpee competition, event 2, max pull-ups, event 3, max deadlift, like they'd be like, yo, you're fucked.
So I think there is a process where you have to submit. I know that at the semifinal stage, you have to have the final submitted workouts a week ahead of time. And I think that there's certain things that must be met. Like you have to, like, it might be very vague. I don't really know, but you might have to have a chipper. You might have to test heavy. You might have to have at least 5 gymnastics movements.
That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar.
So that might be out there. So I think there are some parameters around it, but certainly based on what we saw last year, there's a lot of room for interpretation and variability. Anyway, I think that on the back of finding out about O'Keefe, they were not committed to those events yet. So there might still be the possibility that we see West Coast Classic and Granite Games or one of them pop up and fill in one of these spots.
I think those are gone. I have no evidence of that.
Well,
I have no evidence of that.
They're two very different competitions. So the Granite Games, first of all, has been around for almost 10 years. And in terms of scope and scale, it's usually almost as big as Wadapalooza. We didn't see that last year because of
but it was O'Keefe's
COVID.
event, right?
For a long time, it wasn't, but
Whose
now
was
it
it?
was.
Whose was it?
I think the guy's name was John. I'm sure someone will know. And he was, Minnesota local, and he ran that event very well, and he had a really good team around him. And there's actually, if you go search on YouTube, you can find some good documentation of the work that those guys have done over the years. And the Granite Games was a very, very popular event. So that's, and I mean popular community event, not just at the elite level. So I think that the Granite Games.
Sorry. Some guy wants to say something nice to me. Kayla Harrison interview the other day was so good. Thank you, Gregory. I'm very comfortable in very uncomfortable situations.
Yeah, John Swanson. Thanks, Blair and Elia, Chris. So he and his team had run Granite Games really well for a really long time. So that event may exist going forward because it's always existed going backwards, even not when it wasn't part of the CrossFit Games season in any way. The West Coast Classic is a much newer event. I think that they had big hopes for it to be an inclusive community event in addition to an elite competition, but that didn't happen in 2020.
Please don't use that word on my podcast. Thank you.
Which?
Inclusive.
But all I mean by that is that they wanted to have more divisions than just the elite division.
I'm triggered.
I think if you go back to episode on Tuesday night, it was called Anti-Dave Castro, and listen to the first 20 minutes, you can have some therapy surrounding those triggers, Seva.
Thank you. I'm untriggered.
And then the West Coast Classic was only an elite competition this year, the only time it's ever existed. So if one of those was going to disappear, I would think it would be West Coast Classic and not Granite Games.
What if O'Keefe was really fired and that his boss gave him the same option that Rosa gave Dave? Hey, do you want to leave on mutual terms? And where Dave goes, eat a dick. I ain't leaving on, like, we're not leaving on mutual terms. And O'Keefe was like, yes, we will leave on mutual terms. Peace and love. You cannot confirm or deny. I mean, just possibilities. I'm just exploring. I mean, I don't think so.
I didn't think there was a question in there. I was just letting you
pontificate.
Entertain your mind. Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, Paul, the only reason why I brought this sheet back up is because of what you posted before. Like, okay, I'll dig around in these semifinals. Sure, I'll dig around. So we don't know. If you had to guess, are those really, if you see North America, May 20th to the 22nd, would you be like, yeah, that's probably going to be the Granite Games. They just not sure. They haven't solidified the contract yet. And you look at June 3rd to 5th and you're like, yes, that's West Coast Classic. They just haven't solidified yet. Do you think you know what those two are? You're just not going to say it yet?
No, I don't know.
Really? There's not two events from the past that you're like, hey, those are going to fill those spots?
It's pretty tough, and I don't know what.
Do you think CrossFit would have them? Sorry, just keep.
What do you mean by that?
Like, none of these are run by CrossFit. None of these are like regional style where HQ takes on.
They partner. All the events partner with CrossFit, but they don't. But CrossFit is not involved in running them. Correct.
Yeah, I know what that means. That means Johnny Mac goes there and just fucking gets drunk. What?
Yeah.
What? What?
That means they pay a fee to be a part of the season.
Yeah, and by the way, Johnny Mac does not go there and get drunk. By the way, he's like. He might even be a robot. He might not. His circuitry may not even allow drinking. Could they do one there? Could they be like, okay, we're going to take these back
and have CrossFit run the events?
Yeah, old school. That would address. That would be like a big fuck you, Brian. We are doing something big without Dave. We're going back to where we have them. I've never asked an athlete, hey, do you think did you miss the regionals? And they say no. I'm glad they're gone. Across the board, they all say, yeah, I fucking loved that shit.
Right, and more or less, that's what. The
regionals were dope. If you've never been to the Del Mar Regional, you missed out.
Yeah, and part of the appeal of them, especially in the later years, and I mentioned it just briefly earlier, was that the floor layout was easy to follow the action. Dave made this a big priority in his competitions toward, probably from, well, the evolution of it is clear. Tommy and I wrote articles that talk about this. And if you just watch some of the different ways that the regional floors changed just from 2011 to 2012 to 2013, just in those 3 years alone, it was like massive steps each year and then just refining it from there. But basically,
give us some examples. You're talking about like the markers, the cone. Give us some examples of that for people who don't know, these newbies.
It's like a landscape versus a portrait layout for printing something. So the wide one is not very good for telling the story because it's hard to capture everything that's going on, and you don't give the athletes opportunity to move down the floor and delineate where they are relative to the rest of the competition. The long floor layout allows for you to tell a story, heat after heat, event after, event by event, and whether you're watching live or online, or if you're the cameras that have to capture it, you can actually see. A great example of this is at the games was the 2-2-2-3 intervals. This is like the perfect, and it was actually on the men's side where like the barbells end up making a V, and you could clearly see who was in the lead, who was second, third, fourth, fifth, and how far behind everyone was round by round. So I would say that was like a pinnacle example of the evolution that Dave refined and mastered over the years of programming events on floors that allowed for a progression and a story to be told throughout however long the event was.
I like what you said, delineation. And they use what are those things called? The chess pieces? What are those pieces?
Yeah, there's a variety of different ways you could do it. You could move chess pieces down the floor. Sometimes he's print giant rubber mats that would say 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. So you know how many reps are being done at every area.
Want to talk about the judging at Wodapalooza? No, I'm joking. We're not opening that up.
I will say this about the judging at Wodapalooza, because we already mentioned it surrounding semifinals. So semifinals, as I understand it, you have to have the workouts submitted a week ahead of time. Every major high-level competition should hold themselves to that standard, because if you're allowing yourself the freedom to change and manipulate workouts all the way up until the night before or the morning of competitions, that means that as those are changing, then you have to go communicate either new information or information very late on to a variety of judges from around the world with potentially different accents and abilities to understand, also to a variety of different athletes and coaches who may or may not be able to see the floor that they have to then go execute this stuff on. So if you have everything finalized a week beforehand, then you can write it, translate it, communicate it to all those different people in a more effective and meaningful way, so that everyone from the judges to the athletes to the coaches can be more prepared and can all get back to the big thing that I want to see in the sport is the athletes with the opportunity to express their fitness in an optimal environment.
Fairness. You believe in fairness.
And the games is different, because we know at the games that they're going to test different things that can't really be tested in those other environments. But up to that point, you just have to say it that way, someone.
No, you're right. That wasn't fair. Actually, I retract that. After I said that, I was like, you know what? It's actually more important than fairness. I never even thought about that as much like that as before. The implications of changing the events are huge.
Yeah, massive. And you should also, I think you should, as an event organizer, you should have 3 different workouts written for every workout. The optimal one, if everything is in copacetic, and then a backup one and a backup one, so that if you have to make those last second changes, you have other options available.
Oh shit. Okay, this is not a dig at Wodapalooza, by the way. I really enjoyed it. This is not a fucking dig at them. I was just fucking around when I said, do you want to talk about judging? I can't think of, the only thing I could think of I heard about the judging that was got squirrely was with the swim. But we saw even crazier shit at Dubai too. Remember when the girls went the wrong way? But when you do an event in some place like Madison or Miami, where it's notorious for just water to pour in, any outdoor event, fuck it. What's the backup plan if it rains? That should be in there. So like they shouldn't have had all the athletes out there at that point asking them, what do you guys want to do? They should have known that if it rained, they're switching to burpees.
Yeah. And any workout that you have programmed with a machine, oh my God, we have this many air runners, but 3 of them aren't working. What are we going to do?
Why does it have to be secretly vaccinated? Why do I have to be secret? Why can't I just be vaccinated? Why do I have to be secretly vaccinated?
I've never seen people so excited to share their medical information with the world before.
I'm secretly seeing your mom, Darren. Don't tell your dad. That's unnecessary. 2 mom jokes in one show?
That one is okay, I think.
All right. It seems like Brian is interviewing here for Dave's job. I mean, yeah, cock cutter. I mean, that's maybe.
You forgot a letter there.
Whatever. I mean, he's got swords. That guy does circumcisions for free. Just
Yeah, I think I met him when I was born.
I didn't.
I know that guy.
Oh my god, you do?
Yeah, we're very close.
The cock cutter. Hey, how's the Instagram account coming, Will? It's cruising, huh?
Yeah, really it's going well. Love Instagram. Good company. Great owner.
Brian, do you want to talk about anything fun?
You're not having fun?
No, I'm actually having fun. I love this is cool. But do you want to talk about like is Fikowski go? You want to talk about Fikowski? I heard Fikowski was going to Mayhem, and then someone sent me a link to a post he made, like saying in a story, like, "Hey, I don't know how these rumors started. I'm happy with," and he said the 2 guys that he's in bed with. But I heard it from a reliable source, which is weird. Just some dude I met on the beach, but but the guy works for a supplement company, so it's just weird.
I don't know anything about that.
You don't know anything about that. Okay. And what about what Mayhem athletes do you know that are new?
I'm not sure that are new, that are I don't know if there are any that are new that are unknown.
Let's make the list of all the Mayhem athletes.
What?
Get a couple more sheets of paper.
There's a lot of them. There are a lot.
Rich Haley. How about DeLugos? Is he a Mayhem athlete?
No.
I wish.
Why are we doing this?
Okay, fine. We don't have to. It's your
Kara.
show. We'll do whatever you want. Kara is a Mayhem athlete?
That's the most recent, like, very big news. Yeah. But that's like a month old.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. I was a judge at Flagler. I think it's 2 F's. Not that I care. Sorry, I wish I wouldn't have said that. I was a judge at Flagler on Wadapalooza and was a whole mess for all the changes at the moment. Well, yeah. Has to be a mess, kind of, right? I don't know. Is that, what the fuck is that? What is that? I just heard a couple podcasts ago you serve in air. Oh, is that for you, Caleb?
Sure.
No, he doesn't get to talk. You just look at him.
What does Jake want you to share? Like
The secrets.
Responsibilities or
The codes.
Have we? So is there anything else that's striking in these announcements to you that you'd like to talk about? That you're just like, hey, this is good, this is bad. These are some changes that need to be made.
I think that the last thing is, it's kind of weird to announce the semifinal schedule and have a couple of unannounced events in there, and so locations,
yeah.
And so personally, especially as an organization who's already said that you want to be more upfront in your communication, I think you either should have said, we've had some changes to the semifinal season, so we're going to delay the announcement by 2 weeks, or we've had some things happen recently that have forced us to reconsider the final 2 locations, and so even we're going to announce the events that we know, and there's 2 that we're still working on. But there was nothing like that. It was just like, here they are, and there's still 2 question marks on the map, and there's no explanation given as to why.
And part of me wants to be like, who cares? Chill out. But they do stand out like sore thumbs. It's like all I look at as a fan.
Again, it's the same as the Dave thing. It's like, that by announcing that as unannounced, that people are going to be critical of it. People are going to ask questions of it. People are going to want to know things. You're like inviting criticism.
Hey, it's like, it reminds me of when CrossFit, when I worked there, and I was running the media department there, and the CEO told us to turn off Facebook and Instagram. Sometime I have to tell that story. I tell like the 45-minute version. It was like, what do you mean turn it off? Like, dude, you're a fucking professor, a PhD in philosophy from the University of Washington. What do you mean turn off Facebook and Instagram? Like suspend the accounts, don't post? You mean delete the everything? Oh man, can you imagine? They sold the company with like no Instagram followers. Can you imagine how much more leverage they would have had? Imagine if when all that we had no communication to the outside world. We had fired the whole media team when Floyd 19 happened. We had no ability to communicate. nuts.
I think it's interesting because I think that like what you're talking about with the unannounced events this is what people in their mind think of when they think of unprofessional, is throwing up 2 unannounced events and not. But what would be professional? That's not the matter of unprofessional, professional. What would be professional is you like what Brian's saying. So what, you have 2 unannounced events, but you say, hey, these are changes that were made recently that we don't have answers for yet, but they threw them up with a graphic and said nothing. That's the difference. But when people think, oh, the games are going to be more professional now, I don't think announcing 2 unannounced events with no explanation is what they're thinking of when they think of professional.
It takes away from the legitimacy of the sport a little bit. Just like, we still haven't figured this out.
We can't find 2.
Yeah, literally. Like, we can't find 2 gym owners somewhere who have games athletes who could program this, or like old games athletes. I don't know.
I'm not getting on PEDs. I'm not doing anything. I've been taking a bunch of creatine.
That same jar you've been taking for the past 2 years.
Yeah, for 10 years. Well, I have had the jar for 10 years. I just started taking it.
Seven, what's that white bag on the side of you there?
Oh, this is the coffee I'm drinking today. I kind of want a second cup already. It's 7:30 at night here. I'm actually going to make more. Page Street coffee. It's out of New Jersey. The guy roasted himself. He's a cool dude. I spent an hour talking to him on the phone. Oh, no, not Page Street. Paper Street. I can't even read. Maybe that's why we don't have any sponsors.
Your trifocals aren't working?
Yeah. Hey, there was a. Are you done, Brian?
I think so.
Okay. I want to see one thing here real quick though. It was a nasty comment I read about me.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay.
We're gonna spend 3 minutes trying to find the comment.
Wait, can Brian give us his thoughts on the more overview thoughts on Annie's team and what that means to the team competition?
Oh, in terms of the team competition, Annie making that announcement, I think, is just the first domino of many teams that we'll find out about that will be pretty good this year. And I don't know if anyone will be able to take down Mayhem Freedom's team, but I think that there's going to be probably pushing towards 10 to 15 teams that end up making the games this year that are very, very good. And actually, a lot of those athletes that will be on those teams were competing in Wadapalooza in the teams of 3 format.
Was there anything you think contributing to a shift to see
towards
these
the teams?
created? Yeah.
No, I mean, I got to in the article I wrote about Annie's team, this is something that I think she's been excited to do. She's actually competed in team competitions before. She did the Rogue Team Black with Josh Bridges, Katrin, and Rich 2016. She's competed with Katrin on a 2-person team at Butcher's Classic, and they've won. I think she even competed at the East Coast Classic 10 years ago on a team. So she's always been dabbling a little bit in the team arena. And then everyone else on the team has team experience. So it's not totally outside of the realm of expectation for them to compete on a team. And some of them have done pretty well in a team format before. Lauren Fisher's podium with a team. Tola's got a couple around 10th place finishes at the games. So I think it's a legitimate podium threat this season in the team competition. And there will be some others that we'll find out about as the season unfolds.
That you know about already?
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's a couple that I've heard, some athletes have teased to me to just wait and see, whatever. I don't know if they'll be as good as this one or not, but there are a couple others that will be good and will definitely make top 10 games runs.
Well, then I want to say something to you guys about this upcoming week. Just wait and see. Just you fucking wait and see. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I'm not going to go over the schedule for next week. I got to pack. Doing a little shaking and moving my podcast location for a few days. Caleb, thank you. Air Force guy. Will Brandstetter, thank you. Brian Friend, thank you. Good luck to everyone. Tomorrow's Monday.